Previously on the Project Umbrella podcast.
I hate this community. I hate it. And all the fucking Jill Valentine fanboys come crawling out the woodwork. Have you seen them on the Horrors Live? The Jill Illuminatus, right, have come crawling out the fucking woodwork again because they got a sniff of Jill. Fuck these people. And fuck this community because they're idiots. Most of the people, the vast majority of people are just fucking idiots. They're like sheep. They'll buy anything Capcom will sell. And Capcom know this.
Can I just point out you made this exact same rant on the last podcast about not learning about Sherry, and then 2 days later, Sherry was confirmed in Biohazard 6.
Yeah, you're a bitch slap there, mate.
There is an astonishing amount of rage coming from me tonight.
Project Umbrella.
Hello and welcome to episode 5 of the Project Umbrella podcast, where our reconnaissance missions don't result in a full-scale biohazard outbreak, and our staff members show just as much loyalty as Sergei Vadimir. I'm Nick, better known as Neptune, and joining me on the podcast today is Newsbot.
Hello.
The Batman.
Hello.
Mr. Spencer. All right. George Trevor.
Watcher. I'm also disappointed, Nick, that you didn't mention arses in the introduction.
Sorry, that was last week's. And our very special guest for the podcast, it's Smiley.
Agent Provocateur from The Horror is Alive. With over 1,600 posts. Avid collector of Operation Raccoon City. A Slant 6 sympathizer from the United States of America. It's Smiley!
Where am I again?
Smiley, you're off to the Asian wall. Though we won't see you smile no more.
This is a Theo podcast, right?
Boo!
Come
Yeah, it's
on.
back the way you came. Coming up on today's show, we're going to be looking at all the latest news. That's gaming and site news. The main discussion of the podcast is going to be Biohazard 4, but we're actually going to split that into two, talking about the betas that came before the eventual release. We're going to have a discussion on that, followed then by, of course, Biohazard 4 and what we all thought of the actual game that was finally released on every known console. And, of course, we're going to finish with Neptune and Newsy's Biohazard quiz. So let's crack on with the news. And the first bit of news to discuss is Biohazard Operation Raccoon City has now been released in Japan with sales figures.
Surprisingly good.
The Horrors Alive reported this with 252,525 copies sold in its first week, which is, as you said, not bad. How did that compare to America?
I don't have the figures on me, but I'm sure someone does here.
Well, I've been trying to sell off my copies. I'm living lavish right now. I just bought my hot tub because all y'all haters thought that I wouldn't be able to sell any.
Well, that's at least 5,000 copies of sold in America.
Yeah, Smiley, how much were you offering with each copy that you were giving away?
Sold each one for $500 at first because I didn't know if I could sell a single one, and then I brought the price down.
I was talking in terms of, paying people to take them off your hands,
How many have you sold, do you think, now, Smiley?
4.
4.
Can you give us an exact figure on how many you bought? You just said vaguely boxes to
I
me.
spent my inheritance on about a good 1,000.
Because I could just imagine when you click on the eBay where it says more than 99 available, does it say more than 1,000 available or something like that on the list?
No, it's not an option.
Is it? Okay. Oh, sorry, no, my mistake. Media Creators said that the Operation Raccoon City total sales were 268,000, with the 252,000 being on PlayStation 3, while only a meager 16,000 were sold on the Xbox 360. But of course, we do know that Japan does hate the Xbox.
They bought the worst version of the game too.
Is the Xbox version on Japan the one with Nemesis mode too? Or is that like still exclusive to Microsoft? Did anybody play the game?
Who played it here?
I played
No,
it.
I played it.
I played it.
Didn't bother with Nemesis though.
Yeah, no, I've played the game. I've not played, the additional stuff. I don't want to put myself through more
I
punishment.
think the only person I know that has the Xbox version is CBX Freak, and I don't know what he thought of Nemesis mode because I never got to try it. It was supposed to be like a additional mini game for it or whatever, like an online mode where you get to control Nemesis or something.
And presumably with the minigun and things like that and
Right.
rocket launcher.
He really just walks around and shoots at the opposing team. Really.
Okay.
That's,
Oh, really?
That's all.
So he's basically like a glorified turret, automated turret.
Yeah, pretty much.
Disappointing.
Can you get your tentacle out?
What?
No.
It's me. She cried.
Right now?
Sorry. No one knows if you can get play with the Nemesis tentacle. Sorry, that just sounds just as bad.
Well, I've seen enough hentai to see where this is going.
I think you just use a laptop to program him, don't you? And then he fights for your team, but he doesn't.
Oh, right.
He doesn't mutate or anything like that.
Okay, so it's pretty much, you're not controlling him personally, you just push a monitor button, I'm guessing, and he walks around with his silly Raccoon City voice going, "Stars!"
Pretty much, yeah.
It does sound
Nemesis.
like the movie version, though, doesn't it?
Yeah, I was going to say he doesn't sound as sinister as he does in the games. I mean, this is the Paul Anderson version of Nemesis, isn't it?
Well, yeah, in the movie, he goes up to the little house that some STARS members are shooting from, and then he just fires it all, doesn't he? And then the people are watching him through his eyes, through the camera and built into the Nemesis eyes or something.
I want to say, George, you mentioned Paul Anderson there. Can you not swear, please?
I don't want to say too much about Paul Anderson because I don't want to offend our host here, Nick. No, he's a huge fan of the films.
Oh,
No, I'm
He
not.
can't stand the games.
he's backpedaling now. He's backpedaling. That's not what you said the last podcast.
No, I didn't. I said I like the first film.
Didn't you say that the only thing that betters the film were the S.D. Perry books?
No,
You know what that's like. Saying you only like the first film is like a paedophile going, I only enjoyed the first time. I only like fucking the first child. Like it makes it better. Like that justifies not liking it. The rest of the times you've done it.
John found a way to inject child rape into the
I know.
discussion again.
No, I think that's everyone he's managed so far.
What are we talking about here?
I got my little checklist. Right, mark that one off.
Just need Nick to mention the confidential report now, and then we've
Well,
got full house.
Unfortunately, there's not a lot of other news, really. That's the only thing that seems to have cracked on since our last podcast. But we do have some site news, and I'll hand over to Newsbot to talk about some translations that we've had, namely in respect of Revelations. Paul, can you elaborate?
Oh yeah, we've got the Japanese files from Revelations, and we're translating them right now. So soon we'll have every single file in every single game translated.
I think the contributions, particularly from Newspot and Welsh over the last few weeks at Project Umbrella, have just been phenomenal. The translations, the significant information that they throw up, particularly Revelations. Well done, Paul. I think they've been brilliant.
Yeah, we're working on the original archives now as well.
I knew the FBC sounded a bit strange. How they.
Yeah, the animal loving thing.
Yeah.
And you found another Tricell reference, didn't you?
Yep, it's in one of the files that references Tiavis. Instead of the Global Pharmaceutical Corporation, it's an international pharmaceutical company.
Yeah.
It makes sense. I remember when we had the Revelations podcast, we talked about this specific issue and how we all, is this what the Global Pharmaceutical Consortium were doing? Is that their intention? And everyone then, perhaps it is the organisation as well. It just didn't fit as well as it ought to. And
Yeah.
Well, the only thing I was going to say, the cafe meeting between Jessica and Raymond, do we definitely know they're GPC agents?
Oh, they're Tricell.
They're Tricell as well.
I'm glad it's Tricell because
I'm glad
I've said this before, right? I reckon Tricell are not out. They're not down for the count. They will be back in Biohazard 6.
Because it seems like 5, and especially Degeneration, just kind of swept them under the rug a bit. They make them out to be like, I don't know, the next Umbrella just from within. Nothing.
You see, people think that, all the shit that went down in Africa, all the Tricell logos, they're fucked now because, everyone knows what went on there. But if I was in charge of Tricell, I'd be like, well, obviously Excella was acting alone. She was not acting in the interest of the company. And Wesker, he's a bioterrorist, so blame it on Wesker. Perfect fall guy.
And
There's also
Tricell is 3 different companies in a single conglomerate, so they probably won't all get the hammer down.
Is Ada tied into it in any way? Like, what's that whole S Corporation thing for? That
S is
S-
Tricell.
Yeah, Tricell was originally going to be called Seashell, and S was just a shortened version of.
Glad they didn't go with that.
Yes, definitely.
And you had that M. Suzuki person delete all the evidence off the BSEA desktop as well, which related to everything that happened in Biohazard 5, evidence-wise.
So they're going to be in RE6. What if Alex Wesker is in charge of Tricell?
Well, there you go.
Yeah,
That wouldn't make a lot of sense considering, unless he went by a different alias.
of course, yeah.
Derek Simmons.
Derek Simmons.
That's your big theory.
The theory we had was that he was in charge of the BSAA.
This is Stars Tyrant's ongoing theory that Alex Wesker is the master puppeteer. Well, yeah, you never know.
It's like everyone's out puppeteers the other guy.
I hope it doesn't get too Metal Gear Solid-like and get everyone know.
It is turning into Ocelot by the looks of things.
Yeah, but I never liked the introduction of the Patriots. I thought completely unnecessary.
No, the introduction was fine. It's who they ended up being that was the problem.
Well, I think that concludes the news, and we'll crack on with our discussion on Biohazard 4 Beta.
The cradle of the progenitor virus. Leon S. Kennedy. Possessed. Biohazard 4.
Right, so as we all know, Biohazard 4 was possibly one of the longest games in the Resident Evil series in development. It was announced, I think, well, the intention of it being released was quite soon after the release of Resident Evil 3, because if I remember correctly, Resident Evil 3 was going to be a PlayStation 2 title before it got shifted onto the PlayStation 1.
Would I be right to think there were images of Leon wearing his famous jacket before we got details of Resident Evil 0, or at least just round about the same time?
Yeah, because there was a trailer for 0 at the same time there was a trailer for 4.
Yeah, I'm sure, because I remember, in the old GameCube magazine picking up on that, definitely.
Are you talking about Zero from GameCube, just in general, or was there leaked stuff when Zero was supposed to be on the N64?
Oh, from the GameCube time.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I do remember, I think there was like a Biohazard image in Resident Evil 3 somewhere.
Yeah, outside the, what is it, Cafe 13, I think? Or Grill 13, something like that. And there's a image of the Biohazard 4 logo in the old-style Biohazard font.
Yeah, playing at the cinema.
I was going to say...
Oh, yes, I remember that.
It's up in the cinema, yeah.
Oh, yeah, where Jill meets Carlos, isn't it? One of the many...
Can't you see it as you come out of the restaurant?
Yes, after that, yeah, I remember. So, what we do know is that Devil May Cry was going to be originally Resident Evil 4. Now, I know Welsh on the forums has done a lot of work with that, looking into the original Devil May Cry and how everything was influenced by that. Does anyone have any views on Devil May Cry?
Is this the one where it was about Spencer and he had two twin boys who had superpowers like Wesker?
Yep.
Oh, really?
And Spencer himself was like 100 years old or something in that version.
That whole image of the babies with like the umbrella thing, is that what you're going on with?
Yep.
Was Dante supposed to be the main character of 4? Dante and Joe?
Yeah, Dante was called Tony originally.
That's what he's going to be in Resident Evil 4. Tony.
Fucking hell.
It reminds me of, Yoshi from Mario. Yoshi is as common name as Bob. Mario riding Bob.
Okay. And Mario was going to be Darren.
I think he was meant to be a detective first.
It's interesting, though, how it evolved into the game.
So Dante was going to be called Tony. Why? Was he from Manchester?
I think Virgil was meant to be called Paul, so...
Tony and Paul, battling the undead.
That's what Kamiya said, anyway.
He was going to be called Paul. Well, that explains a lot, doesn't it, Paul Birch?
I don't really know. I mean, I never bought Devil May Cry, so I'm not quite sure the gameplay settings. But obviously, there's the castle setting, which has always been quite a key focal point of Biohazard 4. That's all I really know about it.
This version was the one with the airship, is that right?
No, that's the other one. The next one. The one with Progenitor.
Right.
How much of Resident Evil 4 did we ever see that eventually became Devil May Cry?
None.
Yeah, not much at all. Nothing. Even the church is completely ungothic.
It just distanced itself from the action, Devil May Cry, and I thought that's why they eventually wanted to make their own game out of it. Kami is more of an action developer anyway, so which is ironic.
Yeah, I was about to say.
Resident Evil 2 is probably one of the scarier games in the series. So just that whole style of action, probably best suited for like the Resident Evil movies or whatnot. I kind of actually recreate an image of me over Mila going, I should have been the one to fill your dark soul with light.
I mean, bear in mind, we had the original releases of Code Veronica came with a demo, didn't it? So that was back in 2001 that got released on the PlayStation 2. So it was obviously well in development for years, and it's a shame we never saw any, but there you go.
Well, 6 coming out soon. I don't know anything about the gameplay yet, but knowing that Jake and Sherry are supposed to be a lot more melee and combat oriented, do you think they might copy anything from Devil May Cry in that regard?
I hope not. Obviously, parts of Devil May Cry is quite cool, the gunshots and the kind of like shooting in midair and stuff, but I hope it never goes down too much like that line.
It looks more like a melee fighter. Melee, sorry. Where basically they just punch the fuck out of everything in sight.
That'd be weird, wouldn't it? It'd be almost like a bloody Streets of Rage, but 3D.
I've no idea how it's going to play, though. It just looks kind of weird.
Devil May Cry is interesting because you got, like, was the gameplay itself supposed to be in 4? Devil May Cry's complete gameplay, like, jumping on buildings and, like, even the sword play.
I don't think the gameplay between that version of Resident Evil 4 and Devil May Cry changed that much. I think it was the same gameplay, just different setting and everything else just got changed around a bit.
What, is in camera angle?
No, I think those were meant to be the same as well.
Yeah, those looked the most Resident Evil-like at the time, was the camera angles.
Well, I know, Mr. Spencer, you mentioned it last time about Onimusha as well.
Yes.
I can't remember when that came out, but I think that was shortly after Code Veronica as well, wasn't it?
Let me just double check that real quick, because I don't know the exact date for Onimusha.
Onimusha was meant to be a Resident Evil game as well.
It's funny you bring that up, too, because the third one, Jean Reno's character was voiced by Paul Mercier, who ended up playing Leon.
Oh, yeah, I didn't know that.
That's his, like, introduction to Capcom.
Yeah, I think it was meant to be called Sengoku Biohazard. I think that's the common term for it.
Well, Onimusha Warlords came out in 2001, so I guess that fits in the time period.
I think Onimusha was first in development in 1997 because it actually used the 1.5 engine. They revealed that in one of that Elements book they released last year.
Wow. Onimusha's quite good. I mean, if I remember, I think I played it a few times. It was really good, wasn't it? Kind of like again, that kind of fixed camera angle, very Resident Evil-like, and I saw almost like a replacement for Dino Crisis in that sense, because obviously Dino Crisis was dying a death at that point.
What's interesting about the series at that point was because once they established Flagship to write the story, they started writing, before Biohazard 2 was even completed, they started writing Code Veronica, Biohazard 3, and Biohazard 0.
What are they doing now?
Oh, they disbanded in 2007, I think.
It's a shame. They came up with some pretty good stuff.
Yeah.
What have you got being translated as Flagship? Is it that to the Liberty one, or is it?
Oh, the Strange Phantom or Strange Beast of the Northern Sea.
That's Flagship as well, so we wait to see how that comes out, whether that's canon or not.
Apparently it's set in the same world as 1 and 2, and so there's no real contradictions.
Oh, hopefully not, because then it might make a great addition to the saga.
I never actually heard about it before until it was brought up on Project Umbrella.
This is one by Flagship. Was it released at the same time as that fan one?
It was released in 1998, so I don't know when the fan one was released.
Oh, okay.
I think they were, that was about 2002, them other two Japanese ones.
Because you had the drama albums as well.
But they were never meant to be canon in the first place, the drama albums.
Oh, really? Okay.
Doesn't Ada die in one of them?
Oh, no, Hunk dies, though.
Okay. I think Ada's in the one where Hunk dies, isn't she?
Yeah, she kills him.
Yeah. I thought there was some sort of connection, yeah.
And then she gives up being a spy and goes to Leon, doesn't she?
Yep.
Oh, right, okay.
In Sherry's one, she goes to Stoneville, and the mayor tries to hand her over to Umbrella, and then she flees to Canada.
How does Ada kill Hunk exactly?
I don't know. He is with an entire team, and she wipes them all out, and it says there were no survivors, so...
That's bollocks. Hunk is a badass.
They had an opportunity to like have Hunk do shit, and they didn't do it. What's interesting is that at that time, whenever they were writing Free, it was being directed by Kamiya. This is interesting because it actually ties into the beta versions of 4, because Kami's first game after Biohazard 2 was going to be Biohazard 3, and it was meant to be Hunk on a cruise ship trying to bring the G-Virus to Umbrella.
Is that what it
And-
turned into Dead Aim?
Well, it turned into Gaiden as well, really.
What about seeing Hunk on a cruise ship and something else? I don't know, a little trailer perhaps?
Yeah.
But Hideki Kamiya was going to be the director of the Devil May Cry version of Biohazard 4.
Yeah, because basically 3 ended up becoming a side story because they didn't want no more Resident Evil games on the PlayStation. They needed to push another one in onto that system. And so then Kami's game ended up just getting turned into what he ended up doing as Devil May Cry.
And 3 ended up becoming a numbered main sequel in the series, right?
Yep, to keep the trilogy consistent. But it was actually called Biohazard 1.9
1.9.
until like 3 months before release. It's really confusing.
That's like Kingdom Hearts confusing. They're already on their 350th by 2 game or something. I don't know.
Of course, Biohazard 3 wasn't even the last Resident Evil game on the PlayStation.
Yeah, because then they churned out Survivor.
Yeah.
And I don't even think Capcom developed it. I think at the time there was a big rumor that they outsourced it to some, I can't remember the name of the company, but they outsourced it to another developer, which is why it lacks quality, really.
Slant 6.
Meanwhile, Flagship wrote the scenario,
Yes.
but Capcom didn't really do anything with it. It was actually one of the better stories in the series, but they fucked it up with shit gameplay.
It just sounds like, hey, Leon's got a friend now. Isn't that nice?
Okay, we'll move on to one of the other Biohazard 4 betas, being the Fog version.
And that Eternal showed me a lot of great concept art and a lot of great stuff that tied into that trailer that came out with it. Like, some of those levels really are literally in Haunting Ground. It looks like what they recreated for 3.5 parts of it ended up going to Haunting Ground, Demento Hunting Ground, whatever you play it as. And it's cool if you're looking for a game that has like the closest 3.5 feel to it. That's the game I would recommend playing, just from the levels.
I mean, like you said, there's elements of 3.5 that made their way into Demento Haunting Ground.
And likewise, some of it went into the final version of 4 too, because where do you think that dog came from that Leon saves?
Yep.
Actually, there's a bigger connection to Demento in 4 than that. Demento's story was initially written by Sujimura, who wrote the Fog version and the Devil May Cry version of 4.
And where is he now?
Dead.
Yep, exactly.
The Fog and Hookman version of Biohazard 4 were the exact same. The only addition was the Hookman enemy because it was an experiment for trying to make the game more scary. They're the same story and setting, but just that one gameplay addition.
What I find interesting is the fact that throughout all the betas, you have at least the same style of gameplay, which to me sort of very similar to Remake, just seems to be a progression from Remake. But obviously they did away completely with that, and you end up with, the over-the-shoulder camera angle for the finished version.
They were going to use the over-the-shoulder in the Hookman version anyway. It was just more picky whenever it actually happened, because he could aim both in third person and the normal aiming style, depending on the area and the camera angle.
I mean, the videos that we see, it's certainly presented in the third person.
Yes, it was, wasn't it? You had exploring the setting, which I have to say, I love the setting.
Oh, I absolutely adored it. I mean, I think there seems to be some sort of almost kind of mocking attitude on the forums with regard to people who pine for that over the finished version. But I mean, I absolutely adored the Hookman version, but that certainly doesn't detract from anything, that I feel for Resident Evil 4.
Yeah.
They exist as two separate things that, there's no point pining for a game that never was, but at the same time, you can certainly appreciate, and I do, because for me, there was far more of a survival horror atmosphere in at least what we saw compared to Resident Evil 4. But that's not to say that Resident Evil 4 wasn't a success, because it was.
It's always going to be one of those things like what could have been. But frankly, when I saw the trailers for it and I heard it was coming out, that was the reason why I bought the GameCube, was for that and the Resident Evil remake. I was like, yes, my survival horror crave is reaching a new peak. I mean, these games are getting scarier now. They look like it. They're looking better, too. The trailer came out. Leon looked like Brendan Fraser from The Mummy. And it was just great. I felt like they were taking some cool steps. And if I was right, he was going to go to Europe, right? The main headquarter in Europe, right?
The story of the Fog version was he was going to infiltrate the castle of Oswell E. Spencer in Europe.
I mean, it's the idea, it's the cradle, isn't it? It comes up, going back. I mean, really kind of what you thought they should have done with Resident Evil 0.
Yeah. He ends up finding a laboratory underground, and he basically teams up with a girl and a BOW dog that's the dog that actually made it into the finished version of Resident Evil 4, not Huey, sadly.
Pretty close.
Yeah.
The trailer too, and listen to it. The guy who's narrating, like the cradle, it sounds like Spencer. I don't know if that's what they were intentionally going for, but it sounds like Adam Clark.
I wasn't a big fan of, the trailer looked good, but I'm not sure if I would have liked battling dolls with knives. It seemed a bit Silent Hill-ish.
I know, but they were just
at the
hallucinations, weren't they?
Yeah.
I know. It could have been written off quite easily, but I'm still not sure if that was a...
I don't know. There was the whole atmosphere of that. I thought they were absolutely vile and really creepy. So yeah. I mean, you have little BOWs and you have huge ones, don't you? So I mean, I'm sure they would have been arranged in the finished product had they gone down that route.
Yeah.
Yeah, it just it's easy with me at the time. I liked the Hookman version. Hookman was quite cool.
I mean, I've never played Haunting Ground, but wasn't the Hookman? Did he eventually become the caretaker of the castle that's in Haunting Ground?
Debatalius, I think his name is. Well, there were some images of him, early concept images that I saw of him, and he looked zombified almost. And there were some that had like color scheme that looked very similar to the Hookman. He did have a hook on his arm at one point too. So Annette Turnell and I believe that that's possibly where he originated, but I can't say for certain. She's more of the expert, and she's not here.
The whole point of this was, bring back the progenitor virus, which at the time Zero just been announced. It's all going to be about it, and all seemed to link in quite nicely. And you saw these kind of Ouroboros style claw tentacle things, weren't they, coming out? And
so again, do we know for sure that was a representation of the virus or just another one of Leon's hallucinations?
I actually asked Kawamura about that, and he said it wasn't actually decided yet whether it would be a real BOW or if it would be a hallucination.
When you look at the gameplay, too, it's very interesting because there's the camera angle still, so those are kind of still there. But at the same time, they were still toying with the over-the-shoulder approach. If the games went that direction, would it be too much of a distraction, or do you think it would have been a lot better to still have the eerie placed camera angles, and then when you're aiming your gun at an enemy, it moves into your third over-the-shoulder view?
Yeah.
It looked good in the 5-minute gameplay video.
Yeah, I mean, for me, the over-the-shoulder view only can work in combat mode. I've never liked it. It's a halfway house. I think, go for third person or go for first person. So I think it would have worked much better, as we effectively have in Dead Aim.
Mm-hmm, I agree. I think 4 and 5 could have benefited from that, too, because I've seen mods try to place camera angles on 4 and 5, and there's a lot of things in the level design that you would kind of miss.
Yeah.
Just overlook simply because you're always facing the direction your character is walking.
Yeah, there's that Resident Evil 5 one that I've seen that's particularly good. I mean, that was the whole thing in the first place, the particular and the odd camera angles that, were almost unique to Resident Evil, which kind of made the atmosphere and enhanced the atmosphere.
I mean, just imagine if 4's gameplay, that what we had in the final version, ended up being in the classics. It wouldn't be as scary in a game like Remake if you're facing forward through the mansion.
And I just find it rather annoying that you're staying at the back of his head the whole time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Remember reading in my guide for 4 that once I come to Ashley's part, it would be split into different camera angles and go back to that traditional sense. And I'm like, oh, this is going to be great. And it never did on my version of 4. I don't know which version has that, but
The Japanese version has it. Only the Japanese version for some fucking reason.
That's what? Sorry, I've missed that.
When you control Ashley in the castle, it goes back to the static camera.
But only in the Japanese version.
Oh, my word.
I've
seen that.
I could have sworn it did that on mine.
because we're stupid, we have to have consistency with ours. Because if it dared try to go back to the camera angles, it'd be like, wait, what? I don't like moving this way.
Isn't it just a game mechanic because she's so small that you just effectively see more of her as you're moving her around?
If you played 5 and did the Lost in Nightmares section with the camera angles, that too.
Can you imagine the Ashley sections with a movable camera, like a 3D camera?
I know what he's going to say.
Yeah. Or the Japanese people trying to look up a skirt.
And there it is.
Are you that predictable?
Yes.
I didn't like Ashley's face. I found it very odd, almost.
What's your problem with her face? Come at me, bro.
I don't know. I think that short green skirt punches so much, and then the face just completely lets it down.
She's got a nice face. What are you talking about?
I don't like Ashley's face.
Before we talk about that, have we got any more anyone wants to raise about the beta versions? We do know there's the Umbrella Takedown version, which featured zombies, which was never revealed to the public.
Maybe, no, this is just me saying, maybe it's a re-release where you have to re-buy the entire game again with the extra content.
No. You're thinking of Ultimate Resident Evil 4.
But some of the beta environments from 3.5 were used in Lost in Nightmares, weren't they? Some of the outside courtyard sections look very similar.
I mean, we've got the knights, haven't we, in the finished product when we've got Ashley dodging, the knights that are infested with the Plaga. It's kind of similar. Is it something similar in 3.5 to that? I'm sure.
Yeah, basically they're the exact same as they were in 3.5.
Yeah.
Only they've got a fucking parasite in them that can somehow simulate muscles.
So essentially, it's just that Capcom scrapped what was supposed to be crap, but they sprinkled it all over their later games.
The game actually wasn't even bad by their standards. They actually scrapped it because it cost too much.
It worked out cheaper to start all over again.
Yep, apparently.
Really?
Blimey.
The take that I thought was that they just found it was almost too much, too supernatural rather than biological, can be explained, with virology.
Yeah, I think that was the opinion of some staff members, but people like Mikami thought it was really good. Mikami actually went on to say in a, can't remember, I think it was E3, I think he said, "Don't pee your pants."
Yeah, that's
he
right.
He was hyping it the fuck up, really.
Guess that they just felt like maybe the direction needed to move on from that, or if they're looking for a new direction, maybe that's not the way they wanted it to go. Otherwise, if it was about money, you could just bring your resources down just a little bit.
Can I mention very briefly something that I liked about Ori 4? Probably my favorite part of Ori 4, in fact. I'll say my favorite part of Ori 4 is the fact that Joe is not in it.
You son of a bitch.
Well, I think that can finalise our Biohazard 4 beta discussion, unless I'm just going to throw one more thing in the mix, and how obviously the beta version of Biohazard 4 was bound to link up with Gaiden.
No.
Oh, because Leon's infected at the end, isn't he? Or is that?
No.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah, there you go.
No. No.
Gaiden is
No.
canon. Everything.
I don't mind Gaiden as a game. I just get annoyed when people keep trying to say it's canon when Capcom have said it was never intended to be canon ever once in history.
Who's been saying it's canon?
A lot of people have said it was canon.
Paul, in the interview, do we know why Leon was infected in the first place? Obviously, if it's not relating back to what happened on the Starlight, why was he infected?
He wasn't infected on the Starlight, though.
I know, the suggestion presumably would be that if Gaiden's canon, then at the end, that shot of him at the end with the green scar on the neck is presumably him infected rather than the BOW. So I just wondered how, if that's not the case, why do we see him infected in the beta versions for Resident Evil 4? What would be the cause for that infection in the first place, to cause the hallucinations?
Well, we don't know because the game never got released, so...
No, but it's hinted that Leon's infected with Progenitor, isn't it, in Resident Evil 4, whereas in Gaiden, he's just killed and the shape-shifting BOW takes his place, so he's not infected with anything.
Yeah, because in Gaiden, the game goes out of the way to explain that the only thing that bleeds green blood is the BOW. Nothing else bleeds green blood, even if you're infected.
It's a shame, really, because I know it's never intended to be canon, but...
Which is nice, isn't it? Because, we've got Barry...
Exactly.
Wait, I get the impression that Gaiden is pretty much like The Thing, right? How it's
you can say that.
Umbrella organization, right? Was that what their affiliation was in Gaiden?
Yeah, like an underground anti-umbrella organization.
Would have tied in a little.
Because Wesker's report was written before Kawamura finished the epilogue files in Resident Evil 3, which said that Leon was working for the government. So Hiroki Kato, who wrote Gaiden and Wesker's report, had to basically make something up on the spot.
To be fair, though, let's be honest, it will only take one file from, say, Biohazard 6 to say, I don't know, that after the destruction of the SS Starlight, Leon swam away. Right, no, just take that. I'm playing devil's advocate here. Let's say that is in Biohazard 6. Then technically everything else of Gaiden actually does fit, but doesn't not fit. It can be easily put into the canon.
Well, it could, but it won't.
Like,
No, I completely agree.
I just love to go on to PU the day that happens, just to see what Paul's up to.
Gaiden, it could fit, but it could also not fit. It's like Schrodinger's game.
Like Operation Raccoon City.
Yes, which is canon.
But no, I completely agree. It won't happen. I don't want it to happen. But theoretically, it would take 2 lines from a developer to make it fit.
Well, Leon could say it to Chris. It's like, oh, this is that time I swam away from the Starlight as it was sinking.
Yeah.
Throw it in as a line.
Yep, that's it. And then I can't see any other plot holes, really, big enough to make someone to then say, oh no, it's still...
Nick, it's not like they've got multiple Nemesis running around in Gaiden, so yeah.
No, exactly.
If that was the BOW taking a form of Leon, wouldn't that mean there's a Leon clone?
Oh my god.
Clones. Come on.
The clone virus.
Fine. And then need to go, Leon go, well, thankfully I swam away from the Starlight. And Chris go, oh, yes, my friend Barry told me that he then discovered that he was a clone and I destroyed the submarine.
Can we get on to Resident Evil 4 now? Fuck.
And then after they say it, they both turn and face the camera and go, yep, that's right.
And wink.
Yep.
Okay, we'll now move on to the main discussion of Biohazard 4.
1998. I'll never forget it. It was the year when those grisly murders occurred in the Arklay Mountains. Soon after, the news was out to the whole world, revealing that it was the fault of a secret viral experiment conducted by the international pharmaceutical enterprise, Umbrella. The virus broke out in a nearby mountain community, Raccoon City, and hit the peaceful little town with a devastating blow crippling its very foundation. Not taking any chances, the President of the United States ordered a contingency plan to sterilize Raccoon City. With the whole affair gone public, the United States government issued an indefinite suspension of business decree to Umbrella. Soon its stock prices crashed, and for all intents and purposes, Umbrella was finished. Six years have passed since that horrendous incident. I received special training via a secret organization working under the direct control of the president. I was to assume the responsibility of protecting the new president's family.
Cornel, why am I the one who always gets the short end of the stick?
You, who are you really? Come on and tell us. You are a long way from home, cowboy. You have my sympathies.
Guess that's a local's way of breaking the ice. Anyway, you know what this is all about. My assignment is to search for the president's missing daughter.
What? All by yourself?
I'm sure you boys didn't just tag along so we could sing Kumbaya together at some Boy Scout bonfire. Then again, maybe you did.
Oh, you crazy American. It's a direct order from the chief himself. I tell you, it's no picnic.
I'm counting on you guys. It was right before I was to take on my duties of protecting the president's daughter when she was abducted. That's the ultimate reason I'm in this lonely and rural part of Europe. According to our intelligence, there's reliable information about a sighting of a girl that looks very similar to the president's daughter. Apparently, she's being withheld by some unidentified group of people. Who would have thought that my first job would have been a rescue mission?
So, as this got released after multiple scrap versions of the game, and then the world was shown Leon in his new role as agent trying to track down the president's daughter. Just to get things off, what did everyone think of the game generally?
I'm quite pleased that I was obsessed with Resident Evil when Resident Evil 4 came out, but it was kind of a very solitary thing. I wasn't online. It didn't even really occur to me that there'd be such dedicated sites as PU. So I wasn't even aware of the beta version. So I came to Resident Evil 4 completely unaffected by what could have been. I was absolutely obsessed with Remake at the time as well. I was initially disappointed by the third person going out the window, but it's a hugely confident game. To progress the series forward like it did, to not have the zombies, I think it's almost the pinnacle of Resident Evil for me. If it had just slightly more puzzles in it, I mean, looking at it with Resident Evil 5 in that context, it almost seems to be a progression from Resident Evil 5. I think they went backward with 5. But in 4, I just found it a really confident game. There were very strong characters in it. Taking away, as I mentioned, sort of not enjoying the sort of new over-the-shoulder perspective, but the actual environments, for me, were just pure survival horror. The Gothic castle, the cabin. I've mentioned this before. The fight in the cabin with Louis Serra is obviously completely action-orientated, but in a real survival horror setting. It's not just kind of mindless action. It's got a real sort of setting and backstory, that particular fight. The BOWs, again, I think are some of the best in the series.
I said brief, George.
It's a shame the game itself had no backstory.
It didn't need to. It stood alone. We didn't really want to hear about Raccoon City, and I think the series had to move on. It had to deal with completely separate issues in a completely separate place. But at the same time, the link, the same character with Leon. But I don't think it needed to.
I just want to say you cannot now look at 4 without comparing it to 5, and I've touched upon this in the last podcast. As George, I think is very correct, is that 5 was backwards from 4, and since 5, everyone now seems to be looking back at 4 in much more of a positive outlook than they did when it came out.
Can I just say, I think OI4 both, simultaneously saved the series and destroyed the series.
Yes, it's a gift and a curse for Resident Evil.
What would you say is the curse, and what would you say is destructive about it?
The gift itself, because I like to look on the gift first, it's that the series was getting stale. I mean, I love Remake, and I enjoyed Resident Evil 0 when it came out on GameCube. But, that being said, it felt like they were reusing a lot of stuff. Like, when you go to 0, you're enjoying the train part, but then you get to the facility, the research facility, or like a school or something.
Management facility.
Executive training school.
Yeah, the training school. And it's a mansion. It's pretty much just Spencer Mansion 2.0. I was like, okay. And then Resident Evil 3 was the city. It felt like we were going around familiar turf quite a bit. So it did need that change, and it did need that push. And I'm glad with the final build that we had something that was a lot creative. Aren't merely just fighting zombies. When I heard that this was the first game to not have zombies, some people were like, what? I was like, hey, that's cool. Let's see what they can bring us. Let's see what they can deliver. And for what it's worth, this was the game that started third-person shooter. It really did. It made every action game try to use it as its basis to go above that. Now for its curse, what it started was great. What followed afterwards just ended up being, I don't know. It's not just for Resident Evil, but for the whole gaming industry. Now, because everybody's trying to be like 4. All the shooting mechanics are playing out like 4. Resident Evil 5 was pretty much just the footnote of 4, where all its boss battles were just action versions of the stuff that you already faced in 4. You're fighting another giant. You're fighting, the Wesker battle was pretty mimicking to Krauser.
Salazar was, I thought, near identical to Irving.
Yes.
Same sort of creature, wasn't it?
And then with 6, I can't see much of a difference. It's like they're trying to top the action now as opposed to trying to top the horror. They're trying to go above that. And 4, to me, was like the last time that Resident Evil became most traditional sense, because even though it had all those changes, there was still that feeling that it was a part of the previous classic games. It had that Mikami feel to it, like the horror still. Because when you're facing all those enemies, it's not about the action. It's not about performing the best melee combo you can get. It's about running. It's about avoiding a chainsaw to the head. And you don't have a co-op partner now. It's a single-player game through and through. You don't have a little guy to quirk jokes about. Your character's doing all the running and doing all the thinking. I think that what it lacked was the puzzles. What it lacked was the puzzles and probably, if I could say, just a little bit more exploration. I mean, not that that was bad. Even though it's a linear game, it was the longest game in the series. It felt like it anyway. And you're always seeing a new environment each time. That's not a bad thing.
I mean, it had a fantastic story as well. I mean,
I wouldn't say that.
I would. I think with the Los Illuminados, with the Parasites, which I think was again very confident, completely away from zombies, but giving you the same kind of structure with regard to enemies with the Ganandos. But I just thought the backstory, even going on to the little sketches that you had that showed you how initially the village was was overrun by them, how the Pluggers were introduced. So
that was the best bit.
Yeah,
that was brilliant.
The ending, yeah.
The credits were superb.
I watched Lockout recently, and that's the whole thing about Guy Pearce going on the moon to rescue the president's daughter, and it felt like 4 to me because only Hollywood.
Whoa, wait a minute. What was that you talking about?
Lockout is just a poor man's escape from New York.
Okay.
It's
That's all we need to know.
Where they take a familiar concept of saving somebody, but they put it to over-exaggerated heights. That's what 4 was in terms of the plot. You got Leon as a government agent. It's like, okay, I'll bite. What's he doing? Rescuing the president's daughter. Really? Him?
It's a bit cliche.
It's over-exaggeration.
Oh, yeah, I mean, yes, that was slightly cliche, and I didn't particularly enjoy that. But what I'm talking about in terms of the story is the surrounding environments. They had real history.
Yeah, but there's a difference, too, because in the classic games, it was all about escape. With Leon, it's about rescue primary before Escape. You have all of them running to the mansion not because they wanted to, but because that was the only place of solitude they could find from the creatures out in the woods. Jill's trying to escape Raccoon City in 3. Leon and Claire go into the city, and then they're like, okay, time to get our asses out of here. With 4, Leon's intentionally delving further into it. He's going to the island. He's going to the castle to find Ashley. And that's what 5 was like, too. It's just Chris searching for Jill. Revelations. Jill searching deeper for Chris.
I love Resident Evil 4 as a game. I adore it as a game. I hated the story at the time. I absolutely loathed it. I thought it had very little relation to the older games. I was really pissed off with the way they handled Umbrella. Literally a 2-second mention in the intro. Then it sort of redeemed itself with the appearance of Wesker and Assignment Data. And then when the PlayStation 2 version came out with Separate Ways, it fully redeemed itself, even though I didn't have a fucking clue what was going on. And since then, the story's kind of improved a bit because they've released material that expands on it, like the Incubate thing, which explains the entire credits sequence, the introduction of the Plaga to the village. But other details like Sadler being interested in creating biological weapons, which wasn't actually mentioned anywhere in the game, but it was a nice allusion back to Umbrella. Then there was the whole deal with Wesker and his plans, which we've only recently found out fully what they were truly about because mistranslations kind of fucked shit up. We were initially led to presume that Ada and Wesker were working for the rival company in 4, which ended up being sort of true, but Ada was truly working for another organization.
MGS Quality jumps in.
Indeed. And that's why I had no idea what was going on, because Ada's report itself was really, really vague. And then there was like the mention of another pharmaceutical company, yes, which was sort of like a prelude to another Umbrella. I thought it set the story up for the next few games quite well, but they didn't really expand on it much.
Separate Ways was great, but when you were just the guy who bought the GameCube version of 4 and you had Assignment Ada, it felt like anything that needed to be explained was fine there. I mean, sure, Ada had a different outfit, but just the idea that she got a sample for Wesker and Wesker was reestablishing Umbrella, that was enough.
They kept that in Separate Ways, but they added more stuff to Ada herself to make her more of a deeper character instead of just like a subordinate to Wesker.
I don't know. I was there just being a subordinate because then when you're adding too many companies and too many like loyalty switcheroos, it just becomes convoluted and maybe a bit of a mess, like Raymond, for example.
That's what's annoyed me about the series lately, because they've still not explained Ada, her background, or her organization, even though they've had plenty of opportunities to.
That was why I was fine with Excella, because a lot of people were like, oh, Excella's going to be a backstabbing traitor in 5. And no, she was pretty loyal to Wesker. It was Wesker that, as we know already from the past games, he's the jerk-off that
betrays everyone else, yeah.
What did you think, Batman?
Yeah, my opinion's very similar to Newsbot's. I think it's a great game to play. You know, going back to 2005, I thought the gameplay was excellent. The Switch was really refreshing. And, you know, some of the scenes, like the opening village siege, even to this day, is fantastic. But story-wise, you know, what we were talking, 4 years after Code Veronica, which ended on a cliffhanger with, you know, Chris and Wesker and whatnot, and the story was just so disappointing. You know, we never found out what happened to all the key characters. You know, the Umbrella saga was seemingly concluded in, you know, the first 2 minutes of the intro. It was just, you know, pretty underwhelming as a story. But then we got Assignment Ada, which hinted Wesker. Then we got Separate Ways. Then we got Biohazard Incubate. And then the Plagas became important in Biohazard 5. So now it does sit nicely in the series. But at the time, it was pretty sickening.
Yeah, I think Umbrella Chronicles is also kind of... Well, Umbrella and Darkside Chronicles have kind of like filled the gap between Code Veronica and 4 and kind of made it more seamless in transition.
But as a side story, it was nice. I kind of like the idea of a completely unrelated bad guy, like a religious cult, stumbling across this powerful Las Plagas parasite that has the potential to become a really devastating bioweapon and, you know, come up with some hammy plan to take over the world that would never ever be successful. And then you have Wesker or Umbrella or the organization or whoever finding out about it and then hatching a plan to get hold of this parasite. As time went on, it became more relevant, and that was good. But I compare Resident Evil 4 to like the Alien 3 of the series.
4 is a gateway game. It's a game that anybody, even if you're not a fan, can play and thoroughly enjoy.
Yeah.
It had enough distance from the series, but for the fans, it had enough connections.
Yeah, I think Mikami had the right idea and did a very good job, but I just would have preferred a little more story, which we eventually got from a different writer. So
even now, we're still learning things about the story. I mean, to find out that Ada works from a completely different company to Wesker, to find that out 6 years through Japanese supplemental material after the game came out, it's pretty poor, really.
And we found out that the thing Salazar combines with is the mother plaga, which is where pretty much all the plaga comes from, which explains their source. But it's not mentioned at all in the game what it is. It's just kind of there.
I think another thing too is that if you look at what 4 also did, this is kind of a curse too, is that in the earlier games, if anything was cheesy, it was probably unintentional, not genuinely meant to be cheesy. Especially with the remake, a lot of the scenes played out pretty seriously. With 4, Leon is going in, and despite all these things he's coming against, he takes it very lightly, like monsters.
I have to say though, when he goes, "Where's everyone gone?" Bingo! I did think that was hilarious.
Rain or shine, you're going down.
Yeah, all of Leon's wisecracking was meant to convey that he was more experienced and it meant to develop his character, but it ended up coming off as more of just really bad writing and how they conveyed it in the story.
Yeah, lessened the horror because you couldn't believe your character was afraid.
Yeah.
That's just another thing that just carried over from 4 because you got Chris, Jill, and all of them are more experienced now than they were in their first go. So they just can't really convey horror the same anymore. They just mock it. And that's a problem I also had with Revelations too. Jill, she kind of took it a little bit seriously. But it was all about monsters.
Yeah.
Anything differently with 6.
To be honest, there's not much you can do with the same characters and still have them be afraid of the same things 6 years later.
Which is why I would be fine with Jake, but Jake is going to be a mercenary and he's going to be given
superhuman.
Yeah, so it's not going to be the same either way.
We've touched upon the horror and the fear aspect of Resident Evil 4, and it's totally different to what we previously did. It's this kind of like panicky, oh shit, especially the opening siege in the village when you've got all the Ganados running at you and you're like, quick, barricade, and then you see, this guy from the Texas Chainsaw Massacre come at you with a bloody chainsaw and he just won't give up. And it was totally unique to what
Fear You Can't Forget.
That's the wrong game.
but you know what I mean? It's totally different to what we've experienced previously in Resident Evil, and that was something I don't even think Resident Evil 5 had.
Chainsaw Enemy, but it was more like, okay, I got my co-op buddy with me.
Yes, quite right, yeah.
Plan an attack. With 4, it's just you, and you got to run against it by yourself, along with like 3 or 4, maybe even more auto. So it was a lot more tense. When you have a person next to you, like Ashley, you have to protect her. And this was probably the best game I've ever played with an escort mission because everything they handled was a lot more delicate.
Where are you going, Leon?
It never became a complete.
Look, there's a crank over there.
Yeah, and you could tell her to get the fuck out of the way
Leon,
too.
Look at the ceiling.
I did that every time I saw a bin, disposal bin. It was like, go in there, wait, get in. What we used to say, and I think there's that whole bit where all the Ganados are on where you fight the Bella sisters. I just chuck her in that bin and just tell her that until it's clear.
But it wasn't always about the bin either. There were points where you had to help you out, like help you progress forward to reunite with her. Like you have to give her a boost and she has to, I think, turn some cranks just to make the bridge. And you have to protect her from Ganado or Los Illuminados just coming out and trying to capture her. And so there was a lot of good elements to make that game feel a lot more fun with an escort mission as opposed to just carrying her around with you and she's always like dead weight.
I liked Ashley.
I know you did. You went on your little.
Well, I mean, people always bitch and say, "Oh yeah, she's just dead weight, more or less," like Charlie was saying. But I think that her relationship with Leon was good. It was sort of like the damsel in distress and the protector who has to look out for her and that sort of thing. It was a good chemistry between the two characters.
What are you looking at? Oh, you pervert!
It worked, and you had the limited interactions with the use of the X and Y buttons and what you could do to follow me, wait, come here, get in the box, whatnot. It was a good level of co-op for people who's never done co-op before. Because there's proper big co-op games out there where you can micromanage absolutely everything and everyone. But in the Biohazard world, it was a perfectly plausible way and an easy way for players to bring that together and actually still progress through the game, enjoying it for a Biohazard experience. But I did like sniping. That was quite good. I'm trying to when I got a lot of satisfaction in like shooting Ganados when they're carrying her.
We should talk about the QuickTime events too, because that's a part of it that is debated on whether or not it worked in the survival horror's favor. What do you guys think of them?
I think the QuickTime events were okay in cutscenes because you weren't really detracting from the horror. You were kind of like you were just adding more tension to the cutscene itself. But in the gameplay, I would have preferred running away from a boulder manually than like in Remake, rather than just fucking pressing the button over and over and over.
I didn't mind. I think it got stupid with the bloody Salazar statue.
The Krauser
fight.
Good, Leon. Run,
Krauser
Leon,
fight
run!
It's been a long time, comrade.
I brought it up in one of the Theo topics too. I'm kind of like the opposite right now. Is I'm okay with it in some of the gameplay. I mean, the boulder incident, obviously not, but with the cutscenes, it became too distracting. I'm trying to get invested in what story there is, and I'm always having to keep an eye out for a stupid button to pop up in the middle of the screen, and it just gets annoying, especially that Krauser fight, because I'm trying to listen to what Krauser's saying. I'm thinking to myself when I first play it, God, this is probably important. And I have to push like buttons 8 times and try to remember which combination it'll be.
Oh, for Umbrella's sake. Almost let it slip. Enough, comrade.
You're quite right. I mean, I like the use of cutscenes, when you get picked up by...
That's what I'm talking about. I can see
El
your every
Gigante,
move.
you can try and stab off his parasite on the back, things like that. I like that. But I thought the boulders was a bit weird.
Well, Leon runs from boulders, Chris punches them.
Yeah, I totally forgot about the remake one, so it's not the first time we've had perfectly spherical rocks being able to move down alleyways, but there you go.
Umbrella.
I don't know how the Boulder remake managed to stay there for 40 years. Not once.
What triggered it exactly?
I think it was just entering the area, examining it, and then walking away.
So you're telling me, Paul, in 40 years, right, if this whole time this facility has been operational, no bastard has walked down there and potted about and examined that rock. Hey, Nigel, what's that rock doing there for? I don't know, I was told by management not to touch it, but, okay, well, let's not examine it.
I think the boulder's the best reoccurring boss that I've ever seen. It's that Chris, it's after Leon, Jill, and all of them. And then finally, Chris fucks that guy up. Like, yeah, the joke's on you, pal.
I think the remake, they added a little bit of foreboding in the caves because they added another boulder that's already fallen and there's a blood stain underneath it.
Wait, so you think the boulder that chases after Chris is the same one in OE5?
Back for revenge. Revengeance.
This is the ultimate discovery we've made here, gentlemen.
And the ultimate YouTube video.
That gives Leon and Chris something to talk about in 6. You remember that fucking boulder? Oh, God, yes.
Oh, yeah, bastard. Oh, I finally took that prick out back in 2009.
Did you? Oh, man, I wanted to get it.
It was on the SS Starlight when I escaped.
That wasn't the real boulder. That was the boulder's clone.
Oh, no.
The boulder's clone will be in Ori 6.
What did everyone think of the BOWs in this game? Because obviously that was the big talking point, the removal of, viral.
Can I just say here, one word, regenerators. Holy fuck mackerel. Those were...
Okay, Verdugo, Regenerators, and Ufree were pretty much the best. They were pretty much the only ones I liked in the game.
I liked Novastores, or the insect ones that went invisible, because those...
Oh, they were okay. I think they were better whenever they were in isolated, but then whenever you had the hive, it just kind of detracted from them.
The regenerators
became
great
targets, really. Yes.
They were. Before this, we've already touched upon it. We've touched upon the supernatural element of the beaters. And what never set easily for me was I always liked some kind of explanation, no matter how implausible it was in virology. But I still don't know why El Gigante and how El Gigantes are created.
Well, their biographies say very vaguely genetic manipulation, and then it stops there. That's all. That is really the only explanation they could have come up with.
It still bugs me.
I was saying before we talk about, regenerators, I had to go put Big Light on.
What if they just grabbed like the strongest people they could find just to experiment on them and make them even bigger, like Hulkish size? Like I can imagine the one we faced in 4 was probably Michael Clark Duncan, and then if you're looking for the one in 5, that's like Mr. T. Just give somebody with like a beard, maybe Santa Claus.
I think it's actually explained in gameplay how they get so big, because whenever you're in the laboratory later in the game, in the room where there's tons of Petri dishes of the Plaga.
Petri.
When you Petri, yeah, whatever. I don't give a fuck.
You should.
Well, whenever you examine the larger ones, Leon actually says that they're larger compared to the other ones, and I always thought that maybe those were the ones that were injected into the human hosts of the El Gigante, and that's what made them so big.
That's what
the
she
parasite, the parasite maybe probably expanded their muscles and shit.
There's 3 El Gigantes, isn't there, if I remember correctly?
It's 4.
You fight more than. Yeah.
Is it 4? You got the first boss, and then you've got the
No, I
2.
think there's 3 because the first one doesn't dissolve, so
Oh,
it's kind of still alive. It's just.
Is that the same one Ada fights?
Yeah, actually.
You've got the 2.
No, because
if
you kill
take
it.
The alternative path.
Leon kills it, doesn't he, in the first
Yeah,
one?
it dissolves, and then there's one
Ada.
And then you
Ada
have to run
fights-
past it, and then there's the 2 underground in the castle.
The ones that are underground, they're like the fire pit thing and the flame pit.
Oh, forgot about them. That means there's.
I think
Hold on. Oh yeah, you've got the 2 underground pits, the one Leon fights, and then there's 2 more where you can take the alternative path.
Right, Ashley, you have to help her.
There's
I was
just
thinking the
one.
that you-
Is it just one? Oh, is it just one? Sorry.
I'm thinking of that like the bit where on the island where you put one into like the pool of like molten metal. You can pour one in. You put one in there. The ones wearing bondage gear. Those ones.
Yes, there's 4 then, isn't there? 4?
Yeah, I think so.
That might be another problem too, is that there's some really iconic boss encounters, but there's so many of them. Like with Dr. Salvador, there you run into a room and there's like 2 of them with chainsaws, as opposed to him being like this one stalking enemy, kind of like Nemesis. I don't know if we needed so many Gigante, but it did kind of become a derail, but that did add to the game's length, so make of that what you will.
Do you fight 2, Dr. Salvador?
You fight more than 2. You fight the first. You can fight 2 in the village, actually, if you just ignore going into the cabin first and you go up to where you exit out initially. He'll be waiting there by the door, and then you can
With Ganado beside him, yeah.
Yeah, and then you can go back into the cabin, and there'll be another one. There's even a room, I think, in the mine area where there's 2 of them running around in one little room.
Yeah, only with different clothes.
Yeah, well, the one before you get onto the runaway mine train, he's up in that little room, and I spotted him, and you can sniper him, and he won't come down. You can kill him from there, from quite a safe distance.
That's a real scare factor a bit, especially with 5 when you got the 2 Chainsaw Magini looking exactly the same, coming down with the keys and all that.
I think one of them was in like orange trousers and the other one was just blue trousers, and other than that, they were the exact same.
No, because in the Mercenaries, there's another one, isn't there? Is it Mr. Salvador?
I call him Salvador X.
I think most guides call it just Super Salvador or something like that.
It just reminds me of this scenes from The Simpsons where he goes, you know those guitars are like double guitars? You know those chainsaws are like double chainsaws?
Double chainsaws on fire.
But yeah, I don't know. I mean, it obviously is a bit of a rep from Texas Chainsaw Massacre, though, wasn't it? It's not clear even today with the Plaga infection of Krauser, Mendez, and Salazar, and Sadler to that extent, as to why they do that. Let's say Salazar defeated Leon. Could he then go, brilliant, right, I'll now turn back to my little weird humanoid child, or am I stuck as a bloody plant for the rest of my life?
Oh, it says in Resident Evil 5. Yeah, once you mutate, you're fucked.
So he killed Leon, right? And I was like, great, we killed him. So
now what?
Yeah, what do you do? I Spy? No, we played it already.
I've bonded with my right hand, I think it was.
Oh, is that a euphemism for something then?
I bonded with my right hand and now stuck on this wall looking like a Venus flytrap plant. Oh, brilliant.
But that's why Tricell improved them in Biohazard 5, because it wasn't a marketable bioweapon, because whoever had a controlled Plaga had to mutate.
Didn't Krauser have control over his arm, though? Like in Mercenaries, you could revert it back, but in the main game, or at least Ada said that she's seen what he can do with his arm, so it's like...
Oh, that's another mistranslation.
Oh, is it? What's it original?
Ada doesn't actually say anything about his arm.
So he can't use that arm the same ever again. I kind of...
Nope. Once it mutates, it's just kind of stuck that way. I don't see how it could revert anyway, because it rips his arm up. His bone mutates.
That generated a lot of discussion, didn't it? That.
Yeah, it's a little hot
at the time.
So he mutated his arm and he killed Leon or whatever, right? Yeah, well, he's not going to be using that again for masturbation, is he? I should
Anybody
go.
like any of the characters though? Because even though the plot was out there, what about the characters besides Leon, of course?
I won't answer just yet.
I thought Lewis and Ada were pretty good.
Yeah, I thought Ada she was easily recognisable from Biohazard 2. She had this same personality. She hadn't changed much.
Red Dress is kind of out there though.
I wonder how many men she's slept with since 1998.
What?
Think about it. How many men she's slept with since 1998?
A lot. She's a sleeper spy like Eva.
Exactly. Think about it.
But isn't there a reference somewhere that says she wore that particular red dress because Lewis was a ladies' man?
It's a cop.
Is there?
I'm sure I've read that somewhere.
I think I've read it somewhere, but not in something official. I think it was on a forum.
Maybe.
I call calling him Lewis. It's Luis.
Luis.
Only Americans can call him Lewis.
I didn't really care much for Viggo Mortensen, as I like to call him. I thought Ashley was a great character. And fuck all you haters.
She got annoying. She's voiced by Sandy Cheeks. What can you do? So.
Jill's annoying. Jill's annoying as fuck, the pretentious bitch.
She's voiced by a Power Ranger.
She's voiced by Tara Strong, right?
Oh, no.
Patricia.
Yeah. I bring
Patricia
in My Little
Jolly.
Pony into this one.
So rewind. Who's voiced by a Power Ranger?
Patricia Jolie was a Power Ranger.
Which one?
The pink one.
Oh,
Not
the fit one.
Kimberly. No, brace yourself. I've never watched it recently, but apparently if you go back and watch the original Power Rangers, she really wasn't that fit.
Oh, she was.
It was.
Right. Google it.
Amy
Have a
Jo
look.
Johnson, she was called.
Yeah, that's what you were thinking of. But she
Really
did
hot.
her own
Fit.
vocab work, physical and vocal. For
Yeah,
five.
I think that was when I got my first erection when I saw her. Wait, never mind.
Wow. I'm going to go into how dark the game actually got with Leon's character, because it really showed just how mad the man's been ever since Resident Evil 2. What an impact the Raccoon City incident made on him. When I first started the game, I thought it was very interesting how he goes to the village and he enters the man's house, breaking the window too, with his knife. But he enters the man's house uninvited without knocking, doing anything. And the poor guy is just tending to his fire. And he sees this stranger in his house, this man he's never met. And Leon's just flashing this photo and talking in a language he doesn't understand. And the guy just tells him, "Who are you? Get out of my house." And Leon's, still talking. He doesn't just leave. And so the guy feels the need to defend himself. And what happens? Leon puts a bullet in his head. And then all his friends who were working outside happen to see this, and they think, "Oh God, the police has brought this madman upon us." So they try to attack Leon. Leon pops them down, and then word spreads through the village that there's a madman on the loose with a gun. Some foreigner just doing this to them, and I felt really bad, like the villain in this game, I gotta tell you. And
I've never thought of it that way, but you're quite right.
well, they're all infected, right? Well, the first guy I killed, he didn't have a parasite sprout out of him. He didn't dissolve. He just laid there dead on the floor. And
Yeah, if you examine him, Leon just goes, "Oh, he's not a zombie."
exactly.
Shit, I thought he was a zombie.
Now, that's a difference between Leon and Chris, because in 5, Chris goes and he sees two men literally force a parasite in the guy's mouth, and he's there to help the guy. He doesn't just shoot him. He just tries to motion him, and the guy attacks him. And that's the difference. And they had probable cause to enter that guy's house because they heard him screaming in panic. And Chev was like, "Did you hear that?" So that's the difference between Chris and Leon. Chris helps the people. Leon kills the people.
Well, they're not so different. When Chris examines the guy he kills, he also says, "Oh, he's not a zombie."
Like,
All these people account they're as zombies.
But he saw the infection. He knew for a fact that this guy was literally being infected right in front of him. He saw the blood come out of his eyes. Whereas Leon, he had no probable cause to think the guy was infected.
He did come at him with an axe, to be fair.
Yeah, but hey,
Defending himself.
and he was protecting his home. You can't blame a guy for protecting his home. If some guy walked into my house, I would probably pull out my gun and shoot him.
He didn't even knock. Fuck's sake.
And this is why America has the highest gun crime rate in the world.
He's an American agent. He doesn't knock. He just kicks the door in.
What other characters? I didn't like Osmond Sadler much. Too cliche, even for Resident Evil standards.
He could have been good, but he didn't get explained. No backstory.
Wasn't
No.
he some kind of like con man that turned up there? He was a con man, wasn't he? Who was interested in the myth of Las Plagas, and he used the villagers to get to it.
It's not explained
haven't
how
seen
he knew the Plagas were under Salazar's castle. That's not explained.
I don't think we always need an explanation, though. I certainly don't need an explanation for the tentacle that comes out of his robe. Some of the best villains are usually the ones that have to get an explanation for. It's just that with him, though, he was cheesy. He knew how Leon played, and he tried to play with that humor, too, because, like, when Leon's messing with him, he's like, oh, all right, then my kid's a Thorn Man. Back in the day, Bela Lugosi could have played him.
Oh, yes.
I thought Krauser probably had the best backstory, although it's not really revealed a lot in Biohazard 4.
No.
Had to wait 6 years.
There was that, he knew Leon, although we didn't know how he knew Leon. He knew Leon, and then obviously with Separate Ways, you saw the kind of conflict as well, and how he, totally mistrusted Ada and relationship with Wesker and things. And I thought eventually he was a really good character who I wouldn't mind seeing again. We're not going to, obviously, but
boss fight too.
Wicked boss fight, yeah.
The thing about him, though, is, like you said, when you're a fan and you're playing this 1, 2, 3 Code Veronica 4, his appearance just comes out of nowhere, literally. When you're shoving a character 3/4 of the game in, and he's an important one at that, you kind of need a little bit more.
I remember before we found out who it was, I thought it was Nikolai.
Stupid.
Oh, yeah, similar, yeah.
His head, what's it called?
Beret?
Yeah, I was just like, okay, I don't know anybody except bad guys and Jill that wear berets. So.
Mendez was a good character as well.
I thought he was supposed to be the main bad guy in that, so I was kind of surprised when I found out he wasn't.
Why did you like Mendez anyway, John?
I don't know, I just thought he had a cool voice, he had a cool voice actor. He was quite tall and he had the biggest feet I've ever seen.
Some of the best kills, too. Like, if you mess up your QuickTime event, he just, crushes Leon's neck, and I'm like, dude, what the fuck?
If you become unpleasant to our eyes, there will be severe consequences.
I love that, too, because I immediately went back into the room going, oh, yeah, you want a piece of me? I'm going to kick your... And then a cutscene appears, and he's kicking Leon's ass. And I'm like, what? I was just kidding.
That's the first introduction to Ada in the main game.
Yeah, I never went back into the room, so I remember playing Separate Ways for the first time going, I don't remember this bit. Because where she comes down, doesn't she, and shoots him.
I mean, Mendes is awesome, but take away his cutscenes and his NPC powers, and he's nothing.
I was so underwhelmed by his boss fight. He turned into a fucking centipede.
It was a human centipede, wasn't it?
Just a centipede standing up on 2 legs. That was all he was.
Salazar Flower.
It was nice fighting him in the burning shed, though. That was pretty cool.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
When he mutated, he was still wearing his trousers.
If only the actual creature was better.
When he mutated, he was still wearing his trousers.
Yeah.
When the trailer came out and they showed that claw that ended up being part of him, everybody was like, oh, it's a tyrant. Leon's going to fight a tyrant in this. Not quite. Not even close.
I just think Resident Evil had so many classic moments that Resident Evil 5 especially just simply doesn't have.
They have an oven man. That's their problem.
You have Oven Man, he's great. But I mean, even little small things aren't particularly pivotal. I really liked the bit on the cable car going down to the caves, wasn't it? I really liked that little bit. I liked the intensity of the Bella sister fights.
The bag in the dumpster was pretty good.
I think that on the little cable car thing, when you're going down to fight Mendes, I think you should have fought Mendes on that cable car and had the music from A View to a Kill playing, the Golden Gate Bridge fight music. So it's like you basically have Leon on there going along and suddenly it stops. And no, wait, I've got it completely wrong. I mean, shit, was it Moonraker or the Spy Who Loved Me where Jaws fights Roger Moore and the Sky Cart thing? I don't know, but I would have used A View to a Kill music anyway. I'd have had the little sort of cart thing going down, and then it stops, and then all of a sudden you see another one coming up, and it's like dun 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 dun, and then you have that John Barry music coming in there, and then you fight him on top of it, and he falls to his death, or so you think.
Leon might as well be the American James Bond with his kill record.
Yes.
Might I also add that in Resident Evil 2, he gunned down a hit-and-run victim, too. He sees this poor woman who's on the floor, possibly a hit-and-run. She's trying to cling onto his leg, and I could swear I heard her, whisper, help me, and then Leon's like, no! I don't think it helps that he shot down his boss in Resident Evil 6. If you're gonna...
I think it made it easier for him.
I was hoping that would be President Graham in the Ori 6 trailer, because then Ashley would have been able to come into it, but...
It wouldn't have worked with the time length.
Yeah, they initially said it was going to be 10 years after the first Resident Evil or something.
Well, you say that. It could have still worked, but he may not have been the current president. I'm pretty sure, Smiley, you can correct me, but don't old presidents still get known as Mr. President?
Yeah, they technically, but they're like former president, and I doubt Leon's gonna be like former president.
But no, I'm saying like our former Prime Minister Tony Blair makes an absolute fortune going around American universities milking them all for money, talking about how shit he was. It could be theoretically that he was former President Graham doing a speech at Ivy University. You know, it could have worked if they wanted.
It could have worked, but I just didn't see it happening, especially the idea of Ashley running around with Scarface and doing the whole shebang. I was more in tune with Sherry being it, and it turned out to be Sherry. Although now she's a government agent, which leads me to think that the U.S. government is probably the biggest dick in the entire series now because they like to coerce and force people to join their little group.
The military-industrial complex, that's what it all is about. I reckon the main villain in Ori 6 will be the US government, or to be specific, a group within the US government. You know, I'm not saying, oh, the Patriots, blah, blah. I mean, you know, just a US government, but individuals in certain influential positions, like a cabal, if you will. And Derek Simmons will be one of these men who are behind this sort of cabal, if you will, who are funding Umbrella and all these sort of pharmaceutical consortiums and companies in the past.
I think you might be right with Triceratops involved as well.
In Degeneration, there's actually a reference to the government kind of developing the progenitor virus, I think.
On behalf of America, I just wanted to apologize to all of you for invading your countries, gunning down all your villagers, even shooting your cow and chicken. So, on behalf of America, I do apologize.
I like it when the cow retaliates, because I don't shoot these cows, I knife them. If you stand behind it, it does kick you.
Those poor cows, they're like,
Wow, you knifed him, so it's not even a quick job for you. It's like getting a knife in there, you know, just stabbing away.
I felt more sorry for the dog in that area that just kind of runs away from you at any time you get close to it. It's like you just know that dog's been abused.
Right? Our village destroyed and we're all upset about one dog.
But it's odd because you could kill the fish as well, couldn't you, and put them oddly in your inventory.
Leon's one act of mercy.
Quick question about Ori 4. Who shot the water and got eaten by the Del Lago monster?
I did.
No, I heard about it.
It didn't surprise anyone?
Surprised the fuck out of me. I was like, what? No! I was trying to shoot the fish and see if I could get them on from the boat, and then I should have noticed when the water started rupturing, but...
Oh, I didn't know that.
There were some surprise kills that I really liked, like when you drop the Gigante into the lava pit and he comes out and grabs you.
Yeah. You get too close again, that was good.
What did everyone think of the bits in the castle with the zealots and the fire-breathing dragons and the massive robo Salazar? I think a lot of that stuff could have been left out.
Over the top.
There's a whole roller coaster sequence, effectively, isn't there? Even in the castle, you've got the underground Indiana Jones Temple of Doom, and then you're on these bloody mine carts in the castle just to get you back to where you were.
They should have kept the 3.5 castle that actually looked like a castle instead of just all the ridiculous shit they eventually put in.
But Ashley's segment was great. I enjoyed that part too.
Yeah, that was good.
You could hear the armor coming after you in the dark. That was good.
Oh yeah.
No, it was pretty good.
And it actually had its only puzzle in there, the only one that made you stop for a moment and be like, okay, pause the rest of the game just to solve this.
Talking of puzzles, how many people lost that pendant first time, though, in the murky water?
Oh, yeah.
No, I did.
Yeah. I was like, oh, shit, it's so obvious. And
no, and that leads on to something else, the merchant. If you did trailers and you just went into this as a fan, you'd be like, okay, stranger. You just walk into the window and you're like, over here, stranger.
Got a selection.
No, I'm gonna goodbye.
Sales, stranger.
Most random character ever, but the most important one in 4.
I thought he was quite funny. And has anyone ever seen there's a spoof someone did on, is it N4G or NG4?
N4G.
N4G, someone went around some American mall going, what are you buying?
Yeah, I saw that. That was pretty.
It was really good. Really funny. He got chased out of the mall by the security guards.
We haven't used him since. He's the only thing that really truly remains exclusive to 4, and I loved it.
I really like the inventory system as well. I thought it was ingenious.
They were going to bring the merchant back for 5, weren't they? But changed their minds.
No, there is a merchant in another game.
Which one?
Not enough cash.
Confidential report.
Oh, God.
Isn't there one in the mobile version of Degeneration?
Yeah, there is actually, so I guess I take that back then. But none like him, because in Degeneration, that was like that team that Leon goes in with.
Oh, the SRT.
It's one of those guys that's all covered up.
Oh, well, that makes more sense rather than just some fucking Australian in Spain.
Oh, come on. I wanted to know his backstory more than Sadler's, because I can just imagine this guy is infected, and instead
He
of
is infected. isn't
going against Leon, he takes his opportunity to be like, I can make some money out of milk this American. Just some random weapon arms dealer who got infected. He's like, you know what? I could attack him, but I'm not. I'm still going to do my thing.
He got his priorities right.
In confidential reports, so he's an arms dealer. It's only available on the iMode version online.
Oh.
Fantastic.
Yeah. Sorry, isn't it true with the merchant? If you put the what are you buying? The parasite viewer in front of him, he comes up with a parasite in him.
I've actually never tried that.
I think in some parts he's human, because you can see he's got normal eyes, and then other times his eyes are red, so you know he's infected.
What are you selling?
He might have some.
We know he's infected, though, because it actually says in Archives 2 he has a parasite inside him, but instead of attacking Leon, he sells weapons.
He even has the time, God bless him, to set up a shooting gallery for us. So the man's dedicated in his work.
It begs the question, how long has he been planning this? Like, how long has he known this shit's been going on?
Like, the village heard word of an American foreigner shooting everybody up, and this guy just was in the corner going...
Then decided to put blue bottle caps around some trees by the church and go, right, well, let's see if we can do this challenge.
Te voy a hacer picadillo.
He must have known this was going to happen.
Well, where is this taking place? It's like, is it Spain or is it like a...
It's vague. It's just Southern Europe.
Okay, so, like, he's probably not getting shit from these guys. I mean, their currency is, like, foreign and outdated, isn't it? So
it is Spain. I mean, they're speaking Spanish.
For some reason, they will not say what country it is.
You know, it's funny, right? They used pesetas. They didn't switch to the euro. Who's laughing now? Yeah.
The most logical explanation is northern Spain, which wants to be autonomous because it's Basque region. It's that certainly that geography and the scenery around resembles northern Spain, and it's got to be on the coast as well.
Yeah, true.
That's the only part of the world that it could be, because autumn in Spain, other parts of Spain, is still pretty hot, and it's not. Only the northern part has actual seasons, whereas the rest is quite a Mediterranean climate. But that's all we can go by. But yeah, it is Spain, but not officially Spain. It's stupid.
Thank you for that input about the weather, Michael Fish.
That's all right.
At least in 5 and Darkside Chronicles, they made up a country.
Yeah, which was better.
No, it isn't. I'd rather they wouldn't make up countries.
Well, they're doing it again in 6, but they're not only making up countries, they're making up cities.
Well, they've always made up cities. Raccoon City's made up.
But they're kind of replacing Hong Kong with Langshan.
It's not made up. I can show you guys. I thought it was, but then I just remembered there is an actual Raccoon City here.
Yeah, I remember seeing that.
Oh my God, that's true. It is. Oh, and there was like a company there. It's not called Umbrella, but they use the Umbrella logo too. And I thought that was interesting. Coincidence.
Right. Has anyone got any other points they'd like to raise?
Laser gun in the later versions. I really enjoyed it on the Wii.
Actually, that's a good point. Let's talk about the different. I suppose we've touched upon the different versions with separate ways and things. I was playing it on the Wii. It has aged quite poorly, I thought. But there we go. The graphics aren't as good as I remember them being.
I own all versions so far, I think. I mean, at least released here in America. And my favorite's been the Wii version, just because it felt more close to the GameCube version. And separate ways, like the quality of the main campaign in 4 felt like the GameCube quality, and separate ways didn't detract from that. In the PS2 version, everything felt downgraded, and the HD version, don't even get me started on.
The only proper way to play it, I think, is through emulation. It just looks great. It looks better than the HD collection version.
The Wii controls weren't that bad, though. In fact, if they made more future Resident Evil games off like PlayStation Move and the Wiimote kind of thing, I wouldn't be against that, as long as it was optional. But I always thought that was a cool way to play the game.
They did it with 5. I actually haven't tried that yet.
It's good. I enjoyed it.
How would you think this game would have been received in terms of story if it had come out after the Chronicles games? So we'd already gone through Operation Jarvier, so you knew the history between Leon and Krauser. You knew Leon was a government agent. We'd already taken down Umbrella. And then
I look at them as single entities anyway, because even a gamer who just jumps into a game like Metal Gear Solid can enjoy the story itself without having to play Metal Gear 1 and 2. With Resident Evil 4, you have to, sometimes you have to look at it as a single entity. And the story, even though it's not the greatest story, if you look at it like a cliche B-movie quality that it's aiming for, then it's fine.
Yeah, I'd have to agree. I think it's very, as I said, it's always been quite a separate storyline. It's only us fans that really give a shit about the story in that sense, and most reviewers just didn't care. They enjoyed it for what it is, and I think that's the best it can do. And I think your analogy about being a savior and a curse or whatnot is very good and spot on, really. Reviewers loved it. I'm sure it's the most well received Resident Evil game.
Mm-hmm.
It is one of the greatest games ever. There's no denying that.
Got a lot of the year awards from a lot of people, except the VGAs. I think they gave that to God of War, but that's the VGAs. What do you expect?
Yeah, I would just say that it's a superb game, and I can honestly say I've completed that game more than any others. I think it's got such great replayability. It's so much fun, especially once you complete it for the first time and you really want to go and play again because you get to keep your weapons. It's just so brilliant, and there's lots of different strategies in the way the creatures are. You can try to take them out in different ways, and there's little things you always notice, like just before you fight El Gigante, there's like a little circle of crows. And if you fire a flash grenade, you'll die. And, that's quite. And you get all the points. Little things like that. You miss them. It's just a really fun game, and I think it's only been saved as a good Resident Evil game through later releases, supplementary material, and things like that. And it's
missed the mark though. There's some like 5. They kind of just missed what the charm of it was because they want to expand it and make it more action, more co-op. But there was enough horror in there to still make it, in 4 anyway, that made it memorable.
I think the reason the horror quality downgraded from 4 to 5 was because none of the actual staff members that worked on 4 really worked on 5. None of the planners were involved, and neither was Mikami, of course.
Mm-hmm. And he can make an action game, but this wasn't a traditional action game either. So
yeah, there were still some horror elements at least.
Especially if you go back and play it after you've played Resident Evil 5 as well.
Exactly.
Yeah, certainly. There's an unnerving tension throughout the entire game.
But in terms of story too, as a separate entity, if you're gonna add characters third way through, like Code Veronica even added Wesker back, and only fans would know who he is. If you were starting the game with Code Veronica, you'd be like, okay, Agent Smith, whatever. You kind of got to establish a lot more than just, oh, we had passed together. That's it. So with Krauser, that was my only real complaint as far as the story goes, is that he's meant to be a character to tie things up with Leon, but he's a new character. So you got to add a little bit more. He doesn't have like the whole Wesker thing where there was a game before him. They really had to expand upon him, and it only took Darkside Chronicles to do that. So
yeah, back when Code Veronica came out, they were writing like 3 or 4 games at the exact same time, and they were trying to link them all together, so to speak. But with 4, it was just 4 they were working on.
Mm-hmm.
So they could manage to keep it more of a standalone title and really related to anything else at the time.
But it wasn't too bad of a distraction because what you did see with Krauser, it was still good.
Yeah.
Full triple play with Ada and Wesker in the mix. And again, people have to ask, well, who's Wesker? It's like, well, I guess you gotta play further on to find out. And Separate Ways was good too, but I think that the only thing that brought that down was that the quality felt a lot more action-packed than 4, especially with Ada and Address doing those cartwheel flips and all that. The hook shot that she uses quite constantly.
The bit on the battleship as well.
Her, El Gigante high heels and knifing his parasite. It's really out there.
Yeah.
Punctual. I like that. Is Krauser there?
He's dead.
Pity. But after all, just another expendable grunt. Thanks to you, however, Umbrella's one step closer to its re-establishment. And once it is, there will be significant changes in our world.
Well, we'd be pleased to know we've had some call-ins from some of our listeners, and the first one of this podcast comes in from the Horror is Alive member, Crimson Elder. So let's listen to what he has to say.
Hey guys, what's up? This is Crimson Elder from the Thea Project Umbrella and Crimson Head Elder forums. I got a list of things. I'm going to run through them as quick as I can. I'm going to start with trophies. I thought they were really good adaptations of the game. Made it a lot more interesting, especially since this was like my 15th, 20th time through the game. It was nice to be rewarded for playing through it. The one problem I had with the trophies was the Don't Shoot the Water trophy. When I first seen this, I figured you'd get a trophy for killing a lake monster. Turns out on reflection that you get rewarded for being eaten by the lake monster, which is a bit silly in my opinion. I'm not really one for getting rewarded, getting trophies for dying. I think that's a bit silly. HD, that was really cool. It was nice to see RE4 in crystal clear graphics. Music was kind of a letdown for me. I think RE always get the music right. They do a really good job with the music, and this time not so much. The only track I can remember off the top of my head would be the save music, which was the only one that stands out. I literally can't think of another song from that game off the top of my head. Mercenaries, same as with the music. I thought Res 5 did a much better job with Mercenaries and the music. As much as you guys don't like Res 5, but I think they beat them on that one. Ports, ridiculous amount of ports. If you own a console that doesn't support this game, then what console are you playing? We don't need any more RE4 ports. Enemies, the best enemy's got to be the Iron Maiden. So that was a really creepy enemy. First time I played it, it's like wandering really slowly towards you, and then as soon as it gets by you, it starts moving really fast, and I thought it was kind of scary. Files, Chief Mendes, I don't know if he... this is my theory with Chief Mendes' Files. I think that he was that sick of Ashley Graham that he actually wanted to get rid of her. So by leaving Files for Leon, he was telling Leon, don't let Leon to the church, and giving him hints. I think he was leaving a trail of breadcrumbs for Leon to come and actually get Ashley, because I don't think he wanted her there anymore. I think she's that annoying. I know Spencer loves her, and he wants to marry her or whatever, have his honeymoon on the Titanic. But last thing I got to say is the QTEs, QuickTime events. I thought these were really cool in RE4. They can be a bit harsh and annoying, but they really get you going. Like for instance, when you're running from the boulder, you are actually running from that boulder. You're bashing on the controller. You miss that bit once and you're dead. And that's about it for me. Thanks for listening, and I will brought up some new topics for you to discuss, and I hope to hear my voice on the next podcast. Cheers, guys. I just want to say to George Trevor, that third spot is ours. Come on, you Spurs. See you guys.
Yo!
Come on, you Spurs.
Well, first of all, as a Spurs fan, everything you said, I agree with. He's got a good point about the music. It's quite forgettable, isn't it? I found for a series that's quite strong in its, atmospheric tracks, and we all remember, classic ones from RE2, 3, the first one. But yeah, no, I was quite disappointed actually with the music from Resident Evil 4.
He's proper Welsh, isn't he? From the valleys. So some interesting points raised there by Crimson Elder.
Did you get a trophy for being eaten by Del Lago, John?
Me?
Yeah, I thought you said you did it.
Yeah, I did that. Yeah, I shot the water to get the trophy.
So you have to actually die to get all the trophies?
Yeah, you have to actually shoot the water to get eaten. It's called Don't Rock the Boat, the trophy is called.
Crimson Elder's a player of the HD version, which unfortunately I have not purchased.
Upscaled version.
I didn't see a problem with it. I thought the HD looked fine. The only problem was they didn't do the cutscenes for Separate Ways.
Oh, really? Because actually there's a point I always noticed, because I never had Separate Ways on the PS2. The first time I played it was on the Wii, and I always thought that the cutscenes on Separate Ways on the Wii, you noticed they appeared to be more PlayStation 2-y.
Yeah.
Especially when you're fighting Sadler at the end. I think there's a tiny little shot where he turns and faces the camera, and you can tell that little shot there was made specifically for the PlayStation 2, when all the others, obviously in the main mission were GameCube. And it's the only time I really felt that there's a significant difference, but I'd imagine it's exaggerated with the HD.
He also mentioned the files as well. I think we'd all agree that this game's got the most disappointing files.
Well, there weren't any, were there?
It's just Mendes leaving clues for you where to go next, basically.
Yeah.
It's a shame, because again, it was an opportunity really to dig into the past of the Los Illuminados.
I would have liked to have seen more detail on the origins of Las Plagas.
Yeah, exactly.
It almost has that extraterrestrial kind of feel about it, doesn't it? Yeah, these are parasites that were found underground, but we've got no idea were they unique to that particular area? Do they come off a meteorite? There was just absolutely nothing at all.
It doesn't explain it. It just gives them to you and goes, right, just accept it for what it is.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Which is fine. I mean, I think as we discussed, this was designed to be for new players as well, just to get into it. But unfortunately, a lot of our, purists wanted a bit more background. I would say one of the long-term problems is that, of course, there's still technically Ganados roaming around living their lives in the village even after Leon leaves. It's not like, Raccoon City were all destroyed, the biohazards wiped out. What's to say they're not still roaming around? Same in Kajuju as well.
But haven't the guys with the control plagas, they've been killed, haven't they? So there's kind of no one to really, cause them to do much. Would that be right?
They would just go on about their lives as normal until some poor bastard stumbles across them, like, Deliverance all over again.
I don't know, Paul, is there anything in the material about it?
Nope.
Well, that's a short conversation.
It's a slight plot hole, though, isn't it? Normally in these games, everything gets resolved with the inevitable self-destruct sequence. That only happened on the island, meaning there's still quite a large area of southern Europe / northern Spain still
Spain's in Europe
with a semi-biohazard going up.
Oh, so they're in like an isolated region of Spain, and I don't think they get many visitors, if any. So really, they just go about their lives until some poor asshole stumbles across it, and they get attacked. And of course, the police will investigate it and put them down, I guess.
Can the Ganados spread the plagas?
If Mendez and Sadler are dead, then they're almost going to be kind of just walking around like zombies, aren't they? Effectively, they're not going to be sort of because they were sort of initiated by those that had the control, weren't they? Without the guys that can control them, then they're just going to be wandering around sort of missionless. Would that be right, Paul?
I'm not even sure. It doesn't say anything about.
God damn it! You're the law master. You don't know anything.
There isn't anything to know.
Well, make something up and put it on the site.
We don't even know how controlled plagas are created, though, do we?
I don't think they even it's not even stated whether they're artificial or natural either. So.
I wonder if it's like an ant colony or something where they can artificially create their own queen, like turn a worker ant into a queen ant sort of thing.
I think that's what the ritual thing was, because otherwise Ashley wouldn't have been able to spread the parasite in the US government.
Yeah.
Well, worker ants are like male ants. You're saying they put, they dress up a worker ant in drag and say, "There's our queen, ladies and gentlemen."
We've had another call-in as well on Biohazard 4. This one comes from our regular contributor, Vito, so let's have a listen to that.
We have to go. We don't have any time to waste.
Go? Where?
Hey, it's up to us to take out Umbrella.
That's it. Umbrella's going down. Chris, promise me. Please promise that you won't leave me alone again.
I'm sorry, Claire, but it's not over yet. There's still something we've got to do.
You mean...
Yeah, it's payback time. We've got to destroy Umbrella. Now, let's finish this once and for all.
3 main games, 3 main characters, all hell-bent on taking down Umbrella. And let's see what Capcom came up with.
With the whole affair gone public, the United States government issued an indefinite suspension of business decree to Umbrella. Soon its stock prices crashed, and for all intents and purposes, Umbrella was finished.
Why? No, really, why? Why ignore all the build-up they did for this since 1998? Yes, I have to admit, Resident Evil 4 is a great game. It had great graphics for its time, amazingly fresh gameplay that revolutionized the industry and the series for that matter, and I really didn't care that the game didn't have any zombies in it, or any classic BOWs. And yes, the game is lacking many aspects from a true survival horror game. And by the way, speaking about that, fuck the merchant. I really didn't like that son of a bitch. It really didn't got explained in the story. And I just prefer to find my own weapons and ammo. It was a terrible idea in my opinion. But anyway, the really disappointment on this game is the story. I know I might be crazy and all, but isn't the destruction of Umbrella one, if not the most important plot of the series? And it got fucked really good. Stocks? Really? They couldn't come up with something better? They did try to fix it with Umbrella Chronicles, but I still feel that it was trying to fix something that was already broken beyond repair. Anyway, I'm really curious to see what you guys think about this, and I'm pretty sure you will discuss it on the podcast. Well, see you later, guys. Oh, and enjoy my question for the quiz.
Right.
Good call.
He's not done a question for the quiz again, has he?
Yes.
It's not a ridiculous one again, is it?
I'll open it up for the quiz. It was bloody hard last time.
It was bloody stupid last time.
There is a veto question this week. It's Biohazard 4 related.
Okay.
What's the question that Vito has pitched? Is it like, what denomination of currency does Sadler keep in his wallet?
How many leaves are on the third tree?
Without saying anything, it's a bit like that, but not.
Second tree.
I've had to reduce it because there's two parts to the question, and it was just bordering on the obscene of how ridiculously hard it was. So I've narrowed it down a bit.
What's the name of the Ganado on the stairs? What is he using to attack Ada 1? I can only imagine that's the two-part.
What did he say there again?
It's basically moaning about the lack of Umbrella takedown and.
Yeah, that was a good point.
But we've already touched on it, haven't we? It was a bit of a slap in the face at the time, but they've sort of bridged it now with the two Chronicles games.
Yeah.
Did you guys agree with this point? Because I did about the Merchant.
It had comedy value, I thought, about the Merchant. I think we touched upon it as saying how stupid it is in some sense, but in many ways it kind of works.
It's optional as well. He said he didn't like it, so just shoot him.
Yeah.
But where'd you buy your shit from and your gear?
He wants to find it on his own.
So if you kill the Merchant, I think he turns up again, doesn't he, at the next checkpoint?
Yes, that's right, yeah. Well, it's a great call-in from Vito. Well played on the editing there. He's putting a lot of effort, which is always welcome on the Project Umbrella podcast. Okay, well, I think I can conclude our discussion on Resident Evil 4, and we'll now move on to Neptune and Newsy's Biohazard quiz.
5 questions, 3 participants, and 1 topic. It's Neptune and Newsy's Biohazard quiz.
Okay, and welcome to Neptune and Newsy's Biohazard quiz. A recap of the scores. Batman, you are currently on 18.5 points and leading. Mr. Spencer, second place on 10.5. George Trevor, 8.5.
I'm coming for you, Spencer.
I hope not.
A recap of our guest presenters' scores. Ridley is on 4 points, Zombie Fred is on 1, and Stars Tyrant is also on 1. Smiley, this is your opportunity to join that list.
Woo! It's a bit like Top Gear, really. The star and a reasonably priced quiz. George, do you remember the theme song with Blankety Blank?
Yeah.
Blankety Blank, Blankety Blank, Blankety Blank, Blankety Blank,
Blankety Blank,
Blankety Blank. But it was pretty simple.
Blankety Blank.
Super match
game. Yes.
Let's crack on with question number 1. It's an odd one out question.
Ooh.
Which one of these is not in Raccoon City? Is it A, Mina Road, B, Army Street, or C, Chumleen Drive?
Could you go for the selection again?
I can. It A, Mina Road, B, Army Street, or C, Chumleen Drive. Okay. Everyone got an answer there?
Mm-hmm.
Question number 2 is a timeline question. What happens today on the 6th of May in 2008 in the Resident Evil universe? I'm going to give you all a clue, unless anyone doesn't want one. No, I'll give you a clue, because I did give you a clue on the last timeline question. It's a Resident Evil 5 timeline thing. So what happens today on the 6th of May 2008 in the Resident Evil universe? Question number 3. Sherry Birkin is born in 1986. What other Resident Evil character is born this year?
1986.
Yep.
Is this strictly game-wise, like main game?
It can be anything. Question number 4 is Vito's question.
Let's move on.
How many bottle caps of Leon?
Oh, fuck off!
Bullshit.
How many bottle caps of Leon are there in Biohazard 4?
Got my answer down there.
I had to actually go on YouTube to know what the hell he was talking about, but it's the shooting range gallery.
Yeah, I never bothered with that.
I never bothered with it, but it's that.
Really?
I got all the bottle caps. So I might know this.
And question number 5, I'll hand over to Newsbot for that question.
Okay. In the beta version of Resident Evil 4, what powers did Leon gain from the progenitor virus?
Good question. I mean, the only place that I've seen Leon with a mutated arm is in that image that appeared at Tyr, which was then accused as being a fake by Welsh. So.
Oh, it's real. Don't worry.
Okay.
Okay, so everyone put an answer there?
Yep.
Join us after this when we'll run through the answers.
Super match game.
I was just about to say that.
Yeah.
Bring a touch of the Mediterranean to your home with an orange tree and oranges. Homemade clothes made easily with a slitting machine. Do it yourself in the company of a workmate drill and tools. Or double up to a versatile answering machine and telephone. A set of Les Dawson's favourite whiskey, brandy and wine glasses. And tonight's star prize is a long weekend for 2 in Paris.
Hello and welcome back to Neptune and Newsies Biohazard Quiz, and we're going to go through the answers to see what everyone's got. So, question number 1. Which one of these is not in Raccoon City? Was it A, Mina Road, B, Army Street, or C, Chumleen Drive? What did you put, Batman?
I'm going to put Chumlee Drive.
Chumleen Drive. Mr. Spencer, what did you put?
Mina Road.
Mina Road. George Trevor, what did you put?
Chumleen Drive. I'm pretty sure I recognise the other two.
Okay. And Smiley, what did you put?
Ah, fuck. I put Army Street. Because it sounded really stupid. I can't imagine Japan using
Well, that's
that.
the reason why it would be in there.
So you've actually all gone for completely different answers. So I can safely say one of you is right. Well done, Mr. Spencer. Mina Road is not in the game, but Mina Street is.
Ah,
fuck
Oh my god.
So well done, Army Street and Chumleen Drive
Took me down a dead end.
are near the top of the city. So well done, Mr. Spencer.
Fucking hell.
It's all right. Super match game.
The one time I go with the same question, fucking John
Gets
Batman
wrong.
gets it wrong.
Question number 2 was the timeline question. What happens today on the 6th of May 2008? Smiley, what did you put?
Sella and Wesker have their first date because I have no clue.
Batman, do you know this one? You got it last time.
I'm pretty sure it's got something to do with the Reapers in the Ouroboros factory. I'm going to say there's a quarantine because they found the Reapers.
Okay. Mr. Spencer?
I put M. Suzuki kills Ryan.
Oh, interesting. George Trevor, what did you put?
The Ouroboros laboratory, well, it doesn't burn down, but there's a fire. There's a fire in the laboratory, and it sort of damages, like, there's an area that it damages, but not the whole laboratory.
Oh, interesting. There is a fire, that is correct, well remembered, but there's also a biohazard outbreak there, which I think is to do with the Reapers, but it is a contained one. I might have to get back to you on that one.
There was a fire. There's a fire in the storage area.
Definite point for George Trevor. Batman, I'm going to have to get back to you on that.
Fine.
Why does it always have to be complicated when I get one right?
I don't know. It's just I'll have to look at the
You've got no room to talk, because when I got that question right the last podcast, you were like, oh, how has he got it right? You start questioning my intelligence.
The only point, I'm giving you the point, GT, you're all right, but I've got to check whether or not, I'll have to look on the on our Chronology of Evil, available on projectumbrella.net, to see. So we'll move on to question number 3, which was Sherry Birkin was born in 1986, but what other Resident Evil character was born this year? George Trevor.
Well, I'm pretty much guessing, but I'm saying Ramon Salazar.
Salazar.
Yeah, Ramon, yeah.
Yep, okay. Batman?
There's 2. There's Sheva Alomar or Manuela.
Smiley, what did you put?
I put Manuela because she's the only other young girl. I couldn't really remember what year she was.
And Mr. Spencer?
Manuela Hidalgo.
If in doubt, go with Batman.
No, I had that. I had the surname down, so.
Yes, very good, very good, very good. It's Sheva Alomar. Although I only got that long enough, but I think you're right with Manuela. So well done, well done. So points to all bar George. Sorry.
Fuck you.
Question number 4 was vetoes. How many bottle caps of Leon are there in Biohazard 4? Batman?
I don't know. 12.
12. George?
3.
Mr. Spencer?
4.
Smiley?
3.
A correct answer has been given. It's points to Smiley and George!
Bastards.
Yes!
It's 3!
Super match game. Super match game.
High five, boy!
And question number 5 was from Newsbot, which was what superpower does Leon have in one of the beta versions of Biohazard 4? George Trevor, what did you put?
He has the power to cause severe fucking catastrophes on his first day in each job. Don't you notice it's his first day for the RPD and there's a fucking massive catastrophe in Raccoon City, and then his first day on operation for the president's daughter and she gets kidnapped. So yeah, if you're working for an organisation and Leon S. Kedney's about to turn up, fucking run. Otherwise, I don't know.
Batman?
I don't know what powers he has, but it's his left arm.
I mean, he was
Gets
hallucinating, wasn't he?
infected and it turns into like a big tentacle snake thing. I don't know. Presume he uses it as some kind of whip. I don't know.
Mr. Spencer?
I just put like a sort of a tentacle arm, like Ouroboros had.
Well, it's always quite similar to what what's his name ends up with.
Wesker.
Oh, not Wesker. Krauser.
Smiley, what did you put?
Well, I put down he can go underwater and talk to the sea creatures, but actually my real answer was everything about the tentacle arm except not his arm in his pants. So
Makes sense.
Makes sense. Do you want to put us out of our misery?
Yes, there's more than one. There's the tentacle arm, and then he's able to kind of slow down time.
Oh.
So it's because he's hallucinating. He can sort of. It's actually still in the debug menu of the demo of the game. I think it's still there.
Well, if anyone's played Prince of Persia 2, when you're slowing down time to run away from, I think it's death almost, the death creature looks very similar to the way the progenitor virus is represented in the Hookman, you know, in that beta version.
Who put tentacle?
I did tentacle arm, tentacle Ouroboros arm thing.
I did as well.
Well, I said that before we even started the quiz about his arm.
But not during the quiz.
Yeah, I put tentacle third arms.
Well, that concludes the quiz. Very good scores, gentlemen. Very even, actually, today. The winner, joint first, Smiley and Mr. Spencer with 3 points apiece.
Excellent.
I said it must be my birthday.
And then in second place, Batman and George Trevor with 2 points. I'm checking the scoring for you, Batman, on May the 6th. And according to our timeline, there is only a fire breaks out during a test for loading of the virus onto missiles, so nothing about Reapers, so I can't give you the point.
Fine.
So what are the scores George does?
Well, that means after episode 5 of the Project Umbrella podcast, it means Batman, you are now on 20.5, still leading. Mr. Spencer, you've closed the gap a bit and now on 13.5. George Trevor into double figures, 10.5. And Smiley, you've moved up to second place in the guest podcasters with 3 points. So well done. That concludes the quiz. So join us for the next podcast where we'll have another set of questions. Well, very good quiz, gentlemen. Thank you all along for playing. We can now look forward with our next podcast, which is going to be on one of the classics, Biohazard 2.
Ooh.
So yeah, we look forward to Biohazard 2. We're going to dissect the game in great detail, as we always usually do. All the good points, bad points. Probably also a discussion on 1.5, maybe?
Oh yeah, we could do that.
I think so. That'll compare what made it in from 1.5, what didn't.
We know a lot about the 1.5 story now, so I think we can discuss it.
I think so, yeah. I think it'd be a great little bit like what we've done today. It'd be quite good to talk about the beta. Okay, well, that concludes the podcast. We're all going off to watch Blankety Blank. Thank you all very much for listening. And we'll see you again on the next podcast. So it's goodbye from me, Neptune.
Goodbye from me, Batman.
Goodbye from me, Smiley.
Goodbye from me, Mr. Spencer.
And it's goodbye from me, George Trevor.
And goodbye from me, Newsbot.